Good morning. My name is Pastor Steve Brown. If I haven't a chance to meet you, I look forward to that opportunity. We are continuing this series titled Finding Sanctuary. So let me ask you a question. Do you want to find real and true sanctuary in your life? Do you want to find real and true sanctuary in your life? What does that mean? Well, last week I asked what it meant. We shouted answers, and we said things like it's having rest, real rest, and safety. It's having deep peace, contentment, encouragement, acceptance. And when we talk about finding sanctuary, we're not talking about something that's temporary, like for a day you feel good about that. But it's an ongoing condition in your life every day. Do you want to find that kind of sanctuary in your life? If you do, I'd ask you to consider what the ancient Hebrew prophet Jeremiah wrote 600 years before the birth of Jesus. He wrote this: "Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you'll find rest for your souls." I think a wonderful way to understand sanctuary, real sanctuary, is having rest for your souls. Not just physical rest, but deep down peace, contentment, and joy. Rest for your souls. Jesus said the same thing. He said, "Come to me, all who labor or weary, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls." He said, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." This is what sanctuary means. And God desires that all people experience this sanctuary. That's why Jesus came, to give us sanctuary. But I want you to see again, what does the prophet Jeremiah and Jesus say about finding sanctuary? We will find true sanctuary when we walk God's path for us. The ancient way. God's good way. That's when we experience sanctuary. Do you want to have that kind of sanctuary, real and true sanctuary, in your life? If so, this is a good place for you to be today. Because not only are we in a series called Finding Sanctuary, but check out what our vision as a church family is. We are a sanctuary where we learn God's love and worship, live God's love in life groups, and unleash God's love when we serve, invite, and give to meet the hopes and hurts of others. This is what we strive to be. Everything we do here is to see this come into reality, and this would be the experience that people have when they're with us. We desire that all people, that when they're with us, experience true and abiding sanctuary. But there's a tension here. There's a tension here. And the tension is this. This takes time. To learn God's love and worship takes time. You're taking time right today to do it. To live God's love in a life group takes time. To unleash God's love when we serve, invite, and give takes time. It takes time. And the challenge for many of us is our time is very limited. Our schedules many times are already over-scheduled. And then we say, hey, come experience sanctuary and, do this and sign up for this and come to this and be in this. It takes time. There's a tension here when it comes to finding sanctuary, because finding sanctuary happens when we walk God's path. That's the main teaching for this series that we're in. And we see this tension, especially this week, in what we're teaching, which is this. We find true sanctuary when we enjoy life in active friendship with other followers of Jesus. Now that's pretty self-evident, isn't it? When you have the opportunity to be with friends, close friends, it fills you up, doesn't it? Last night at our house, we had our family and some good friends of ours that we've been in life groups with before, having dinner outside the back of our house. When Katie and I went to bed that night, we said, wow, that was great. That was so enjoyable. It fills you up. I mean, it's kind of self-evident. When I worked with students and I'd say, what's important to you? The most common answer was family and friends, family and friends, family and friends. You go around a circle and they'd say, well, what are you thankful for? Family and friends, family and friends, family. All around. And it's true because it is within the life group of close Christian friends that we experience real sanctuary. But it takes time. Friendship doesn't just appear fully blown. It takes time. In fact, and I'll say this in quotation marks, to experience true friendship, you have to waste time. You have to waste time with people. And many of us, myself especially, I have a hard time wasting time. Because I want to accomplish things and achieve and, be all that I can be. And friendship is about wasting time. I learned this from my kids when they were young, and they'd ask if one of their friends could come over, and I'd ask them a very adult question. I said, what are you going to do? Because that's what we do as adults. We do. And they'd say, I don't know, just hang out. Waste time. It takes time to foster and experience and then enjoy those friendships that really give us sanctuary in our walk. So I'm going to give a little heads up to those of you that have been in a life group at St. Luke. In a few minutes, I'm going to come out there, and I'm going to hope that at least a couple of you will give a little brief description about why is being in a life group giving you sanctuary, and why is it worth the time, okay? So hopefully I'll get out there and you won't just leave me hanging. That's coming in a few minutes. So what is a life group? We talk about it. Here's what a life group is. A life group is any group of close friends that regularly enjoy life together. That's any group. And I think the key word there is the word regularly. I have dear friends of mine that I've had for years, but they live, far away from me. And while we do get together and we renew that and it's not a regular thing. Like a life group is someone you're really doing life with regularly. Now, this is for any group of friends. So is there any difference between this and a Christian life group? What difference is a Christian life group? A Christian life group is it's a close group of friends that enjoy life together regularly, but it's also a group that intentionally helps each other to grow in faithfully following Jesus. That you're intentional about that, to help each other grow. So let me ask you a question. How is this step in the discipleship path going for you now? How is this step of living God's love in a life group going for you? Maybe say, check, I'm in a life group at St. Luke. Maybe say, check, I'm not in an official life group at St. Luke, but I have a group of Christian friends that we do life together and we encourage one another to grow in faith. Maybe you say, I'd like to be in a life group, but it's difficult for me because, and then you can fill in the blank. Maybe you say, I tried a life group. It's not for me. Or maybe you say, I don't see myself ever being in a life group, or at least for now. Or maybe you're saying, I want to get in one. How do I get in a life group? Where are you right now in this step on the discipleship path of following Jesus? Enjoying life in a life group is the model that Jesus lived and gave for us. When you read through the gospel records in the first 4 books of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, over and over again, you see descriptions, reports of the life that he shared with a small circle of close friends, the 12 disciples and some few others. And some of it's just common stuff, you know. They were walking down the road. They ate together. They went to church together. They went to this place together. They got on a boat together. They fished together. Just common everyday. They just are doing life together. And you see it over and over again. We can look at so many passages that describe how Jesus lived this life and gave it as a model for us. I just want to look at one. We read it earlier today. It's at his Last Supper. It's a Passover meal. They're Jewish people, and they're sharing a Passover meal, which is a big-time celebration for them, something they look forward to. It's in Jerusalem. To share Passover meal in Jerusalem is like the pinnacle, and to share it with people that you're really close to, that's as good as it gets for them. And Jesus sends them, a couple of his disciples, in to make preparations. They make preparations. It's kind of like Thanksgiving for us, right? We do all this work to get the meal ready, to get everything ready, and get everyone there. And when we finally sit down, we're just so excited. And so when they finally sit down, after all the preparations, this is what Jesus said to his life group. I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. Now, Jesus is Jewish. The language he's probably actually spoke here was some form of Hebrew, maybe a language called Aramaic. And in that language, when you really want to emphasize something, you say it twice. So when this was recorded in the Greek language, which is what the New Testament was written in, it actually, instead of saying eagerly desires, it would say this: with desire, I desire. With desire, I desire. They just repeat it. And what it really means is Jesus is going, I really, 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 really want to share this Passover. And then he says, with you. Didn't just say, I want to share this Passover because Passover is cool. I want to share it with you. Do you have a life group like that? That you really, 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 with desire, eagerly desire to share meals with and to share experiences with. And you look forward to that. Do you have that kind of life group? That's the kind of experience Jesus lived and gives for us to live. And it's what fills us up. When we are experiencing that, we experience real sanctuary. Now, I also want you to know something else. What he said, before I suffer. This was the night before Jesus would be tortured and crucified. Now, his friends didn't know that, but he knew. A life group, hear me, dear ones, a life group is what you really need when life gets really hard. When life gets really hard. In the life groups that I've been in, and am now, when something gets hard for one of us, when something's got hard for me, that life group is who's been there to make that burden lighter, to ease that pain. Now, I want to tell you, life groups aren't perfect. We're made up of human beings. We sometimes fail one another. If you read just a few verses later, in Luke 22, this life group of friends that Jesus really, 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 really wants to share this Passover meal with, they're arguing with each other about which one of them is the greatest. So, and we call them saints. So, they're not perfect, but in a life group, that's where the burdens of life are eased for us and where the joys of life are deepened. In a life group, we experience real sanctuary. And this is how Jesus lived and the model that he gave for us. Living God's love in a life group is essential to our life with God, as essential as worship is, because we find true sanctuary when we enjoy life in active friendships with other followers of Jesus. having that experience is essential to following Jesus. The earliest followers of Jesus understood this, the ones that wrote the New Testament. When you read through the New Testament, you'll find over 50 times the word each other or one another is used. Over and over again, they say, this is how we live. This is how we're filled. I mean, they don't use the word sanctuary, but they'd say, this is the way we experience real sanctuary. Now, you have probably heard, if you've been here for more than, 3 weeks, you've probably heard us say often, encourage you to get into life group, right? How many people have heard this before? If you don't all raise your hands, I'm going to, And maybe you've I've heard this enough, Pastor Steve. You know what? We're going to keep saying it. And we're going to keep saying it for these reasons. It is in close friendships with other Christ followers where we most tangibly experience God's love and our empty tanks are filled. It is in the true friendships that we experience the antidote for the growing loneliness that people are experiencing in this culture. If you don't know that, either personally, the truth is more and more people are saying, I'm just lonely. Life groups is the antidote to that. Being in a Christian life group is the most effective encouragement and support for making the changes that we need to make in order to more faithfully follow Jesus. Our church family will be at its best when most all of us are in a life group and it becomes the heartbeat of our congregation. And being in a life group is the model that Jesus gave us to live by. So this last week in my life group, again, as I do every time, I had a wonderful experience. We started talking about how the summer had been for us and what were the high points. And, of course, I said my daughter's wedding was a high point. And they were there, because that's what happens in a life group. You dance at your kids' weddings, right? You share life together. And they danced there, and they made comments about my dance with Carrie, about how wonderful it was. I think they said that, something close to that. And then we had and they shared their experience this summer, and then we had a great time in the Bible, looking at the book of Philippians, and then we prayed for the concerns that we have that are dear to us. And at the end of it, I was just filled up. That's what happened. So that's a little testimony. Someone else. Why is it worth your time to be in a life group? How have you experienced sanctuary, real sanctuary in a life group? I hope someone will volunteer. Thank you.
Good morning. Paul and I have been in a life group with a lot of close friends I see here, 15 years. We've had friends move away. We've had new friends come in. And just like Pastor Steve said, we have danced at each other's kids' weddings. We've helped bury parents. Some of the folks have gone through things that we've gone through before us. And just to know that we're not on the wrong track has been really helpful. And parenting struggles, health concerns. Paul had his hip replaced last year, and the food showed up, and the sympathies for me showed up. Because he was a crabby patient. But, Carrie sang in an event out in Newark a couple weeks ago, and not only did our current life group show up, but former members too. We do life together, and we need each other.
Thank you. How about one more? Anybody would share? Thank you.
So I've been in a couple life groups, and I think one of the key words you said was grow. Mm-hmm. And that's been key for me. So regular friendships, you can walk and it's the same conversation and people just want to say, oh, it's great. Yeah, it's great. And I've always found myself wanting to have more meaningful conversation. And I think life groups, you get to talk about the good things, you can talk about the challenges, but I think you're always able to be safe, to be honest with one another. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's talking about something and you can say, wait, is that really what it is? Or is it something else? And, I'm happy when somebody challenges me too. And then and sometimes I go away and I really think about what somebody says, and it causes me to stretch in my life and causes me to grow in my life. So, yeah.
I'm actually going to take one more, but it has to be a male.
Thanks, Pastor Steve.
Here.
Pastor Steve, thanks for giving us this opportunity. My life group is sitting right here. We got together because we all decided to get married in 2017, and we did our premarital life counseling with you and Katie. It was fantastic. We've all grown. We're all, in our late 20s, early 30s, going through those fun adventures together. So I think we've all grown together. We've gone, through some tough times and through some good times together over these past couple years. And it's been great trying to get together with these really busy people on a weekly basis. And we do it most of the time, so we're doing a good job.
Yeah. Thank you, Codsworth. So, and you know what? We could keep doing this because there's many of you that, like, because it's a significant experience. So we want to get a little snapshot into our congregation where you guys are at. We started life groups actually before I came. If you were in St. Luke before I came in 2000, many of you met for a future planning event called the Callahan event. And one of the things you decided was that we're going to have life groups at this church. And so when I came, that was already on the table. And we launched about in 2002, I think it was, we launched 10 life groups. There are 80 people in the life group, something like that. Right now we have 31 adult life groups with 254 people in it. And we want to get a snapshot of where you're at. So you saw on your chair when you came in was a card. It might have been green, it might have been yellow. If you'd all fill this out today, that would be very helpful for us. Even if you're like the first time here, you can participate in this. We want to get an idea of where you're at when it comes to finding sanctuary in a life group. If you put your name there and then check one, or if there's more than one box that fits, check whatever boxes. You could say, I'm in a St. Luke life group. The leader is. Secondly, I'm in another Christian life group. It's not one of the official St. Luke life groups, but it's a group of Christian friends that do life together and encourage one another to be faithful in their walk with Jesus. Or next one, I would like to be in a life group, but it's difficult for me because if you're feeling that tension of that time, schedule, health, work, whatever, something else. I was in a life group. It's not for me. Maybe you've made that decision. I don't see myself being in a life group at this time, or I'd like to be in a life group. And if that's the case, on the back of your connection card that is in your bulletin is a box you can check. I want to be in a life group. And you can give it a try for just 6 weeks, starting in a couple weeks from now when we start 3 weeks from now, I should say, when we start our fall campaign that's going to tie in with the sermon. And each week, groups are going to be meeting to talk about their experience in the sermon, in worship, in their life with God. And you give it a try for 6 weeks. Just check that box and we'll be in touch with you. We'd like you to all fill this out, and I'm going to trust you to put this in the offering plate. We were going to collect them now, but I think put in the offering plate, and who's ever up here, remind them when we get to that point, okay? So the next step from the sermon today is obviously give life groups a try. You will experience real sanctuary. And I know it's going to take some time, but it'll be worth it. Let's pray. Father God, we're so thankful that you created us to be in relationship, that you knew it was not good for us to be alone, and that you've created a community here at St. Luke, as in every Christian church, and throughout time, following the example of Jesus in his life group of friends. Help us to do what it takes to rearrange whatever schedule we need to do so that we can experience life in a life group, and in this way we will have true sanctuary. Help us with that step, Lord. We pray in your name. Amen.